Okay, here on Bluegrass Stories, I'm diving into the lives, the upbringings of bluegrass musicians. I started playing bluegrass right here in Johnson City, Tennessee, where I sit right now at East Tennessee State University, which is like 10 minutes away. And that's where I met my two guests today, Leona, Fiddling Leona, JP Mathis. You guys are a husband-wife musical duo. A food truck here in the Tri-Cities.
Right.
You've been on you star in a Netflix special called Swap Shop. And we're going to dig into your story and kind of what you do with bluegrass. And I'm going to start here with Leona because JP, you and I are from East Tennessee, where bluegrass and country music is abundant. Leona, you're not. You come from Tokyo, Japan. You've been in Tennessee for a long time.
Yes.
When did you start playing music?
I started playing music when I was 4 years old. My dad is a professional studio guitar player in Japan, and so he does a lot of American roots music. He does a finger picking style like a Chet Atkins or Les Paul, Mara Travis type of thing. But in Japan, I couldn't find any, fiddle teacher or anything. I just started with a classical violin when I was 4 and learning classical music. But I was always listening to my dad's, work music. And at age 15, maybe 14, 15, around there, you start thinking of what do you want to be in the future, what do you want to do as a job, a type of thing. And I started getting interested in my dad's work. And I started to hear the sound that's like a violin, but it is played a totally different way. And I just asked my dad, what is this? It just sounds like a violin, but it's played totally different. And he was like, well, it's called a fiddle. And it's basically the same thing, but it's in, different types of music. You play different technical stuff, so on. And I really just fell in love with the sound of it, and I wanted to really learn. But as I mentioned, there's not much fiddle music or fiddle teachers available in Japan. And so my dad just kind of recommended it. You should just go to United States and study these.
And so your family was musical, and they backed the decision to come over and start playing and learning bluegrass. Was there, like, when you were younger, were you playing a lot of? Because I'm interested, and I'll get to this more in a second. I've got all my notes, but like the bluegrass culture in Japan. How big was the scene? Because I have a picture in my head of like this being quite underground. The assumption might not be correct. But growing up as a teenager, were you playing anything remotely resembling like country style fiddle in those early days before you moved or decided to come to Tennessee to learn?
I started searching for those music, and there is actually some bluegrass festivals or country music festivals are available in Japan, but it is, yes, underground, not very, very popular. Especially, it's popular among little older people.
Kind of like here, or
yes,
historically how it's been here.
Yes. So I wasn't really exposed to those things when I was little. I was just playing classical music, and the only thing that I was exposed to was when I go to my dad's concert or something like that. And he was often come to Nashville to record.
Okay.
So like my first fiddle player that I got to meet was Vassar Clements.
Right.
Yes. So they were coming to play for it because he was so into country music and bluegrass music. He would bring those people to play for folk musician in Japan. So they're singing in Japanese and so on, but they had like Bela Fleck playing the banjo, Vassar playing the fiddle.
Is that Howard Levy playing the harmonica?
That type of thing. So I was exposed to those things, but I wasn't, going to the festival type of thing until literally I came to this East Tennessee area.
And that's where so what year did you come here? Because we met I literally, all three of us, I think we met about 18 years ago. We met in like a class together, I think, before I was in the program. But what year did you come to Johnson City?
I started.
06.
Yes, I started 06. So December of 05, I moved over here and then started
Started the
school
spring
in
semester,
spring.
yeah.
And that brings us to where you likely met JP. So JP, why don't you tell us where your kind of journey started? So we're in Upper East Tennessee. You're from this area. Your roots kind of go a bit deeper, perhaps. Tell us about growing up in East Tennessee and kind of how this region shaped you as a musician.
Yeah, I always tell people until I was about 13 years old, I was around bluegrass and country and old time music, barn dances and squire dances and things like that. Up until that point, I didn't think it was cool. I thought it was, grandpa's music or something like that. But I knew it. It was all around me.
Yeah.
And so as when I turned 13, and here I'm actually going to break the third wall or fourth wall here. Hold on. I've got something here that's relevant to this story.
Yeah.
When I was 13, if you're just listening, I pulled out a disc. But when I was 13, I had two uncles on my dad's side, and they played guitar. And they started, they started learning for a couple of years. They were learning all these bluegrass and country songs or whatever. Well, they kept trying to say, hey, you should play something. But you know how it is. You're like, it's okay, whatever. Yeah. I'm playing video games at the time or whatever. And so finally, my uncle was like, you've got to play with us. We need a different instrument besides the guitars. The guitar having another guy played bass, so there was a bass, but they needed like some other instruments. And so my uncle one day come and got me, and he had just gotten, this was probably, I'm trying to think of the year this was, probably 92 is what I'm talking about, long time ago, 93, yeah, maybe 93. And 92 or 3, he had gotten a new truck, not brand new, but it was a used truck, and whoever had it before, at this point in time, there weren't many in-car CD players. Everybody still had tape most of the time. Or some people had got the Discman with that tape adapter you put into that you can play through a tape player.
The one with the wire.
But this one had like a Pioneer official CD player in it. And it even had like a set of behind, it was an extended cab Chevy S10 truck. And behind the extended cab, someone had built a speaker cabinet. Yeah. And it had like two 12-inch subwoofers. So it was all souped up for audio. So we were going to go ride across the mountain in a place around here called Dennis Cove, where Laurel Falls is.
Yep. And
that's where my dad lived. Actually, we were going to go up there and visit him and just ride across the mountain. And he didn't even own a CD at the time. Yeah. So he's like, well, let's go. We went to, there used to be a CD store, long-running CD record shop in Johnson City called Cats back in the day. And he said, let's go look and see if we can find a CD to play on this before we go to the mountain. So we went to Johnson City and went to Cats. And the only bluegrass, like I say, my uncle was a bluegrass fan. The only bluegrass-oriented album they had was this one. And it's the Osborne Brothers, From Rocky Top to Muddy Bottom. This is actually the actual CD. So this was the first time that I listened to bluegrass. And he wouldn't play it until we started up, the ascent onto the mountain.
Yeah.
I was like, put that in. He's like, no, let's wait. So it wanted that scenery. It was like the perfect storm to get me into this.
Right.
So we start up the mountain, and he pops this Osborne Brothers, From Rocky Top to Muddy Bottom CD in, and it's CD technology, which at the time, I know people say records sound warmer, which they do, but with CD you can hear inside the music the different instruments,
right?
This going on over here, and this is a remastered version as well. Mm-hmm. But you can hear the different instruments. So as we were just riding casually up the mountain, it's very curvy and slow, so it takes a while. And as we were riding up through there, I started listening to these songs. And, of course, I'd heard Rocky Top. It's on this album. I knew that song because you can't live in Tennessee and not know that. Right. But so as I started listening, it was like my game, I guess, as a kid or whatever, trying to figure out which instrument was doing which part.
Sure.
And this album's a little different than your standard bluegrass album. It has some steel guitar and some drums and stuff.
Yeah.
Some of that was confusing me at the time. So I was asking my uncle, like, something would take a solo, like, what's that?
Yeah.
You know, and he'd be like, that's banjo, or what's that? You know, that's mandolin. And by the time we got to the top of the mountain, we'd went all the way through all 20 songs on this album. And at that moment, I said, I believe I want to get into this. Mm-hmm. So the next day, I was with my mother, and we were visiting her grandma, which was my great grandma. And I was telling him, I said, first, my uncle had advised me that there's a guy that gives banjo lessons. His name was, he's passed now, but E.C. Miller. You remember E.C.?
Yeah, E.C. I took banjo lessons with him for a while, too. Yeah.
And he taught like over 3,000 people around here over time, guitar and banjo, and over several decades. But so I knew that there was a teacher I could go learn from. Yeah. But I was telling my great grandma, I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to get into playing banjo. She's like, oh, that'd be good. And I said, the only problem is I don't have a banjo. And she said, hold on. And she gets up from the chair or whatever and walks into her bedroom, and I could hear her open, an old house like from the 30s or whatever. And I could hear her closet door creak open and her kind of ruffling around, and boom, she came out and walked out in the living room and laid down a case, and there was a banjo in it. And she said, you can have that. And I said, where did you get this from? And she said that her dad, which would have been my great-great-grandpa, was also a woodworker and played some like guitar and stuff. Yeah. And I guess as a side project, he wanted one time to try to build his own banjo. It was like back in the late 20s. Yeah. So he had handmade this banjo, and she gave it to me. And that's what for at least the first 4 or 5 months, that's what I used. It was a little crude. It actually still had the animal skin head, okay, which was eaten apart. Yeah. Like bugs had eaten it and stuff like that. Right. So I had to take it to somebody, and they had to put me a plastic head on it. Yeah. Synthetic and all that. But so first few months, I started learning with that banjo. A few months later, I got a little better one. Not much better, but a little bit better. Mm-hmm. But that was kind of where I took it from. Basically, what drew me to bluegrass was new technology. Yep. And I guess you could say that I'm kind of OCD as I sit here and adjust every knob on the audio. But I think that's what drew me to the love of bluegrass is how it's like a jazz music. Yeah. Every instrument is featured in different pieces. Yeah. And I want to talk about that because I think from what you guys just said, and myself included, there was a bit of an aha moment for me as well, where you just kind of like, what's this? Right. Can you describe in like a few sentences or maybe a paragraph or so? Because what happens in the morning for me is I wake up, put on headphones, and I'm play bluegrass music or something, country music or something. I've done it for years, and that's the way that I get energized for the day. Something about it you start tapping your toes, and for me, that feeling is big to this day. What was it, if you want to go first, Leona, like describe this music, what makes you kind of have this passion behind it? As far as like it going into your ears and just making you want to play and perform.
I guess as I discovered, I like these bluegrass music, country music, and then I started to notice I actually really, really enjoy dance music. Sure. That in classical music, you are supposed to be holding this way, and then
not moving,
tapping the foot is a taboo,
right,
you can't really move, so on. And I also grew up in Japanese culture. If we are to sing in a school event or something like that, you have to be standing really still, and I was not allowed to be fully enjoying music with how I feel with my body, so on. But when I started listening to these music, it's all about, having the rhythm and then enjoying moving the body, so on. So I think that is the big part.
JP, what do you think?
Hold on, re-ask the question. I was
just kind of on like a personal level, your connection with the music, like when it enters your earbuds, as it does with me, it makes me and I'm gonna dig into this in a second. Appreciate my culture, appreciate where I come from. What does it do for you?
I understand the cultural part of it, especially when I'm traveling. I've done a lot internationally. I guess I've done more internationally than I have in this country outside of this region.
That's next on my list. We're gonna, yeah.
But when I'm playing, especially like say if it's Japan or Europe or anywhere, this is my tribal music.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's the sound, the soundtrack of growing up, the potluck parties, barbecue events. Yeah. You know, that's what's going on. People dancing. People used to dance. You don't have as much of it anymore. But even random people just start flat-footing or clogging or something. And like that was I came from, in the area I came from, especially back in the like 80s, 90s, early to it's party culture. Yeah. Everybody cooking out, throwing horseshoes. Yes, they were drinking, partying, throwing darts in the wintertime when you had to be inside. But there was always a band or something sitting over in the corner. Yeah. So it's the soundtrack of my whole existence. And so when I go international or something like that, I'm just trying to the best of my abilities to convey my sound that's in my mind growing up, that's embedded into me, over to the other the viewer or the watchers, the fans,
your audience.
Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to show to them, and that's kind of what bluegrass means to me. It's nostalgic. Yeah. I mean, it even has nostalgia for music that we don't even have any reference to, like hobos on a train.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I don't personally know any hobos jumping on and off trains. I was related to some in the past, but I didn't know them. But those stories or whatever, it kind of gives you a little, especially of Appalachian region, it kind of gives you a little history. Yeah. So you can learn like what a demijohn is, hot corn, cold corn, bring along a demijohn. It's the thing you drink moonshine out of. Yeah. Like, why would you ever learn that in any other situation? Or learn what a salty dog is, just these old references to these old songs or whatever. It kind of also, it's not only musical, it's also history. It teaches you what those things were in the past.
So the three of us, we have something in common, and I would say probably not a whole lot of bluegrass musicians have this in common. And I'm going to kind of do a yin and yang comparison here, no pun intended. But JP, you and I have spent a lot of time not just playing other places outside the U.S., but living.
Right.
And Leona, you're on the opposite side because you have spent a lot of time outside of your own culture, and you've been here for nearly 20 years.
Right.
Do you miss home? And where has East Tennessee played a role in shaping you as a person and where you're at playing your music today? I mean, obviously it's had a massive role, but I'll hit on this in a second. I start to miss home after a while, which is why I'm back here.
Right.
But you're still here.
Right.
Talk to us about that.
Of course, I do miss Japan, especially food-wise. Oh, yeah. But musically, or the stuff that I do here is more accepted here than trying to bring it to Japan. Like I said, Japan is a island culture, so there are still so many things that they're not able to adapt from other countries.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes. So even with these type of music, I mean, like I said, there are some of the listener, and even let's say like my friends that I went to high school with, it's not like they don't listen to country music or bluegrass music. They're just not exposed to it. And so if I play, if I explain to them, this is the kind of music that I play, and then they'll say like, oh, it's like a Disneyland. Yeah. So they're just, that's the only connection, yes, they have. So I feel comfortable being here in East Tennessee. At this point, like when I go back to Japan for a couple weeks or something, and then within a couple of days, I'm like, I need to go back to East Tennessee. I can't breathe.
It's interesting how that happens. I find, and this story's about you guys, but for me, living overseas, I lived in Vietnam for 4 years. The last bit I was overseas. And, you know, things happened in 2020 that really changed the way you think about where you come from and like the people that are close to you. But I feel very much in my 30s, I'm coming to terms with my culture and the music. That's why I've started this podcast. And it's interesting. But JP, you guys have lived over there a couple different times in long spurts,
stints,
right?
Yeah.
I'm interested. Do you feel the same way? Did you ever feel that living overseas? That you kind of miss home, and did it impact you at a deeper level personally and musically?
Yeah, you always miss home, and it did impact me musically. I started doing, I wrote a couple of songs that were, more towards like home, you know what I'm saying? Like memories of home. I started even doing some covers while we were performing over there, like of like Tennessee blues, like, songs like that kind of harken you back to here. I've always had, I mean, if I were made of money, I would spend half the time there and half the time here. If I had the financial ability to do that, but I would have to be a millionaire probably. So, but I enjoy Japan. To me, Japan, and I'll go back to my story and correct one thing. I actually met Leona in Japan.
Okay.
Not at ETSU.
I think I may have said that. Sorry, I should have checked my notes before this.
So my first experience in Japan, which led me to a lifelong love and interest of the country, the people, the geography, the food, even the Japanese music. I enjoy the Japanese music because it's different. It's popular music or Japanese rock and stuff like that. But probably, I guess, going back to the original time that I went, this is even before Leona. I even knew who she was or anything. But first time I went was with ETSU. And it was just one of those chances. If I would have never went, I would have probably never went overseas. Yeah. It was that we had the opportunity at the time. We had a guy in the Bluegrass program in the Pride Band. His name was Taro Inoue, and he was from Japan, the Osaka area, and he was our mandolin player at the time. And we were just kind of goofing off in the Pride Band, like, we should go to Japan. Yeah. So we started telling some of the administrative people at the college, like, we'd love to go to Japan. He's from Japan, so he can, and his dad's a music person in Japan, so they can help us, show us around and stuff like that. Well, like anything else, everybody thought it was a good idea, but funding was a problem to send, 6 or 7 people to Japan. And lo and behold, we were about to we were doing concerts to try to raise money. We were almost doing like bake sales. To see if we could raise enough money.
I mean, that's
to get us there.
Probably worked, right. I'd say, yeah.
I mean, we raised some, but we were still far off. So the lady at the time, her name was Dr. Jean Haskell. She was the director of Appalachian Studies, which was the umbrella for all the Bluegrass program. And she was just sitting in her office. This was still in our minds, everybody's minds, but it's not looking good. And she gets this random phone call from, at the time, Billy Bob Thornton and Angelina Jolie were married. And she gets this phone call from their lawyer and like advisor. And I guess it was coming up on tax time, and they were looking for money to donate to something to do with Appalachian music. Okay. And she said, as soon as that lawyer said that, she said, I told him, I've got something that you may get into. Yeah. And she told him what we were trying to do. And Billy Bob Thornton and Angelina Jolie 100% funded our whole trip. There was even enough money for us to take a 2-person documentary film crew. Wow! There's actually a documentary film of our first. I have a copy of it. It did play on some PBS some of the PBS stations back in the day. But our first tour of Japan showed us interacting, going to Japanese bluegrass festivals. So that moment there. Where they paid for that, and also they even gave more money, and there was enough for even a scholarship that lasted 4 or 5 more years that they were able to give to other students. So that was all funded by them, and that created my love. And then I started playing with a guy named Takaharu Kunimoto. Yeah. and he first came here to East Tennessee State University. He played the shamisen, which is, if you don't know what the shamisen is, it's the instrument you see geishas playing. It kind of looks like a banjo, but this long, thin neck with a round body. So he played that instrument, but was originally a mandolin player before he started playing that instrument and doing professional storytelling. So he incorporated his mandolin playing onto that instrument and would play bluegrass songs. Yeah. So he came here as like a visiting scholar for a year, and we started a group. He was playing with the college band, but we started a group that continued on. So fast forward to 2005, we're on tour with him in Japan, and we have a day off in Tokyo. And Taro, the guy that I mentioned that was at ETSU in the past, he called or sent me a message at the Yahoo chat, I think at the time, or something.
AOL Messenger.
Yeah. He sent me a message and said, "Hey, there's a girl here that's wanting to a fiddle player that's wanting to go to ETSU," and we were students at the time. Also, it was summertime, and he said, "Would y'all mind talking to her?" And that was Leona. So we set up a meeting at a British pub in the middle of Tokyo, and she met with some of us, and then a few months later, you enrolled and came to school. So kind of recruited Leona.
And the rest is history.
That's it, yeah.
But, okay, so I'm going to segue now into, if I want to talk about your performances themselves first off. I'm going to brag about you guys here, and that's going to segue into the Netflix special you guys are on, Netflix series, rather. I come to your all's performances sometimes in Knoxville. I sit in the back.
Right.
And usually what happens is I'm completely blown away by the precision of your playing, how fast you do it, how accurately you play this style of music. If you guys are watching at home and you haven't checked them out, go watch some videos in the description. But what else you guys do, which I really appreciate, I don't think I've ever told you guys this, it's one thing to go out in front of a crowd and play the music. It's another thing to put on a performance, for which you guys do. We're in our late 30s now. It's not easy to do. Physically, it's not easy to do. And we're talking about, and you mentioned this earlier, JP, about giving the audience a connection, giving them something special to where you walk away. For me, I walk away just feeling bad about how bad I play. But no, seriously, it's really, really interesting, I think, musicians that have this down pat. Because a lot of players don't. I'm one of them.
Right.
What's the thought process? Do you guys go into these being like, I'm going to put on one hell of a show, or is it just kind of come out innately? Like, Leona, you mentioned dancing, and how does the two different cultures sort of fit into your performances on stage?
My thing is probably I mentioned my dad was a studio musician, and he doesn't sing. He's a great guitar player, but he's just a backup musician. Yeah. And when I was started getting into music performance, being on stage type of thing, he would always tell me, you've got to be able to sing. You've got to be able to talk to people. You've got to be able to entertain people. And if you can't do that, then you're going to be the back musician. Yeah. And I was always I'm wanting attention from everybody.
Yeah. I mean, it's great. Like, it's great.
Yes. So I always grew up thinking of, okay, if I'm wanting to be the main something, then I need to be able to sing. I need to be able to move around. Yes. I have to be engaging with whoever is interested in music or what I wear or what I talk about. It doesn't matter. But if I could connect with one person at the show, just one person, if I could make their life either happy or make them smile or whatever, then it just fulfills my heart.
We've played on the stage several times before. JP, we haven't done as much, but I feel, thank you for saying that. And this is something internally for me that I perhaps only in the past couple of years have really tried to have happen with my music, understanding that element of it. But JP, you're as well. Blazing fast speeds on stage. You make a show out of it. The foot's tapping. Tell me about where that comes from. I mean, obviously you're trying to put on a great show, but like, this is more. This is I think we can dive deeper and like sort of bring out the stories as you mentioned, growing up listening to the Osborne Brothers, because these guys did a lot of the same things.
Some of the older acts.
Yeah.
I was always drawn to a lot of the older acts. I mean, even old Bill Monroe stuff back in the days when they had comedians. Mm-hmm. I want it to be a show.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish you would go now and bands had dancers and comedians and the musical performance. You know, I get sometimes bored with just 5 people standing in a line, never moving.
Right.
I mean, I enjoy listening to the music, but I don't really get no entertainment value out of that. Mm-hmm. It could be phenomenal music.
Yeah.
But I approach it like I'm listening to a disc or music or something like that. The visual aspect of it, I was always, even before I got into bluegrass, I was always the kid in school, even all the way through college, who wanted to do the presentation.
Yeah.
I didn't want to write a paper. Mm-hmm. Make me stand up and tell. Like, make me do that. I would
never imagine that, JP.
But also, I'm an only child.
Yeah.
You know, mostly raised by a single mother in the woods on the side of a mountain.
Yeah.
So every aspect in life, especially as I was growing up, that I was experiencing was new.
Yeah.
Go to the Knoxville Zoo.
Yeah.
Wow, this is not the woods I live in.
A big city.
You know, same thing with Japan the first time I went. I remember I woke up the next morning. We arrived at night.
Yeah.
And I woke up in the hotel the next morning and opened the shade and just looked out, and it's this strange land with this strange landscape, and there was a train station right in front of the hotel, and there was like 70 schoolgirls wearing their uniforms, waiting on the train to go to school. And then the other first thing I noticed was all of the light poles and guide wires and stuff looks like Godzilla.
Yeah.
I used to watch Godzilla as a kid, so these strange designed like light poles, that was one of the first things I noticed.
I see.
And just, I always look at anything as like it's totally new world to me.
Yeah.
Because before I went to Japan, I'd been to Florida and Washington, D.C.
Same. Yeah.
That was the extent of my world.
Yeah.
And so entertainment-wise, trying to learn, and I always did this, and I'll say this, I still do it. We went to Ralph Stanley's Bluegrass Festival the other day, and I still do it. I guess that's one reason I ended up also coaching bands. When I watch bluegrass, and this is even from a young age, when I go to a festival, I don't bother the musicians. I don't talk to the musicians. I don't talk to nobody around me. I'm sitting in that chair. I might get up to use the restroom or eat. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting in that chair to watch every band, regardless to how good or how bad, trying to learn something that one person does that someone else doesn't do. Whether it's movement, I totally learned how to work microphones and stuff by watching.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm always... So I always tell people this. I love bluegrass. I listen to bluegrass all the time, but I go into analyzation.
Yeah.
If I hear a new album, I'm listening to what's this instrument doing on this part. So if I just need to listen to music that to relax or something, I can't do bluegrass.
Yeah.
It fires me up. Yeah. So I need to listen to like smooth jazz or something that I don't really understand.
Right.
So that I'm just hearing music.
Yeah.
So all of those things are kind of built into my performance aspect, and working with people like I got to work many times with like Bobby Osborne, or even Kunimoto, the Japanese guy that I was talking with. Kunimoto's probably overall a great entertainer. He spoke 20 words of English, seriously.
Yeah.
But he was also an actor as well, but his stage presence, he could make the audience, even like in North Carolina or whatever, think that he's truly communicating with them and his movements and stuff. So standing next to that for about on and off for a decade, kind of shaped even more. And then I would meet people at ETSU that were from California, and they had a little different kind of gimmick thing. I just kind of would take everything and mix it together, trying to create the show, because my point is what we're doing is, yes, we are musicians, or we are entertainers who can play instruments.
Right.
That's the way we look at ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well, it's led to a lot of great things for you guys. And if you guys are interested in learning more about the East Tennessee State Bluegrass program. There's no shortage of content, I think, from this channel at least. But I want to move on to, let me know in the comments if you guys want more of that. But I want to move on to your Netflix series. Swap Shop. It's been a couple years now since that came out. Last time I chatted with you guys about this, it was like you had to keep it hush hush because it hadn't been released yet.
Right. It was real weird. Yeah.
Kind of give us a recap on that experience. How did you guys come to get on Netflix first off?
I'll let Leona roll with this one because this, they say opportunity only strikes once.
Yeah.
They had to strike about
gosh.
3 times
Yes.
on this situation.
Okay, let's hear it.
So one day, I was about to go give a lesson in somewhere in Johnson City, and early morning I received the Instagram message. And he was saying, "Hey, so and so, I'm a TV producer. I do these type of thing, and we're trying to create some antique related shows, and let me know if you're interested in being part of it." And I do get those type of, I'm a TV producer or I'm a music
Sometimes
producer.
scammy
Yes,
stuff.
it's
Yeah.
very, very
Well,
scammy.
you never know.
Right.
Like stuff comes across the YouTube channel and you never know.
Right, right. But it didn't sound that official.
Yeah.
So casual, yeah.
So I totally deleted the message. And I was going to give a lesson, and he sent me the same exact message he sent to my Instagram account to my email address also from my homepage or so. And I still thought that was the same thing. So it's just a scam. I didn't even think that was anything official, so I didn't even mention anything to him. And then I went to give a lesson, and then he was needing to go shop at the mall or something. So I dropped him off at the mall, and I went to give a lesson.
And just a side note, in Johnson City, the mall is literally called the mall.
Yeah,
that's the name of it.
I reminded that when I drove in this morning.
Yeah,
It's like,
it's
there's
the mall.
Right, yes. So I finished giving lesson, and then I look up my phone, and then getting this message from JP "Oh my God, you don't believe what I've been figuring out, blah, blah, blah. Someone hurry up to pick me up," that type of thing. So I went to the mall to pick him up. And apparently he has found his phone number.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, from, I don't know, my
Something
homepage
online
or something
or-
like that.
When they call and they find your information, you know that they're being serious. Then.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Okay.
But I didn't
but
even
the
know
thing
about the
was-
messages. She
Oh,
never
yeah,
even
yeah.
said
Right.
nothing.
So that thing is he does not answer phone call. I
Yeah.
call him 30 times. He will never pick it up. For some reason, he picked up that phone,
Well, it said New Jersey.
phone
And I was
call.
like, what is this?
Yeah.
And my first assumption was I'll just answer it and it'll be one of those delayed, it's like someone trying to sell me something. You know how there's a 3-second delay
Yeah.
before. I said, if there's a delay, I'll just instantly hang up.
Yes, yes.
But they wanted you on the production. How did the filming go for that? What was the experience like that? Because I have a vision that it's all, because I think you have hit on this. My vision is it's all super polished and they've got a intention and everything, and it's just over and done. Was that how it was on the Netflix?
No, it
Yeah.
was actually, it was more chaos than
Right. That's
Yeah.
what you understand.
Up to that point, I'd had a little bit of TV. I'd done a little bit of TV stuff as far as documentary style
Right.
stuff. But this one was, that's what I was expecting.
Yeah.
And to a certain extent, yes, they have huge crews and they are logistics go along with it, and they have to, send stuff ahead from, the production company was from New York.
Yeah.
So they have to send stuff down and organize all this stuff. But as far as the content, and I was going into it, and apparently, from talking to some of the people that were on the show or involved in many different, the people it was great to be around those guys because they come from everything from The Apprentice
Yeah.
to American Pickers
Yeah.
to everything. So they had worked on some of the different ones of them had worked on all these, hugely popular shows. But what they were trying to do with this one, I guess, I was assuming that, 95% of reality shows is just fake.
Yeah.
Which you know, some of them are.
Yeah.
They were trying to go with this one as real, more like a documentary, because the production company that got the green light to do this, mostly a lot of the stuff they did over the years focused on animals. Like they do a lot of Shark Week stuff. They didn't have that much with humans interaction.
Okay. Yeah.
So they were, I think one reason they hired that production company was to try to just, like we're the specimen and like just video it.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
So it was more of like the first day we started shooting, it was in Rockwood.
Yeah.
They're west of Knoxville.
Okay. Oh yes, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I googled the place.
And so that was our first day of shooting. And yeah, there's some TV magic.
Yeah.
And it's like everything else. And I've heard people talk about American Pickers and stuff like that. Yeah, you just don't roll up on somebody's house unannounced
Yeah.
with a 25-person film crew.
Right.
You have to set stuff up. You know what I'm saying? But what they would do with us, and I really appreciated this, is though, like if we were going to meet Jim, Bob, or whoever was trying to sell us antique stuff.
Yeah.
They made it as organic as possible. They would hold us outside. So when we literally met the person, that on camera,
Okay.
that was the first moment.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't expected that. That's cool.
Yeah.
It's
So they would,
interesting.
they were doing things like that. And then, you know, as we're walking in and starting it, we're like, you know, I have to ask the producers, I'm like, what are we supposed to do?
Yeah.
And they're just like, just do what you would normally do.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, but still, no, I don't care how talented or how many TV shows, you've still got this camera following you around and you're conscious of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So we're walking around like, so the first few scenes we shot or whatever, we were assuming, we were taking it like PBS.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trying to talk as much about each object.
Yeah.
You know, Antiques Roadshow kind of
Right.
thing. I'd try to find an object that I knew a little bit about so I could talk about it. And then they get done with that and the producer's like, no, you know, this is not PBS. You don't have to like go through everything.
Right.
So then we just started being more random, like just, oh, this is stupid, or
Yeah.
like, oh, who would want this thing? You know, those kind of interactions. And they would just keep filming and filming and filming. And then they basically just filmed hours and hours of every team or group that was on the show.
Yeah.
And then by editing, stitched together and created the storylines.
Yeah.
Right. And
So-
then they'll send it to Netflix, and then whoever the
Executive
producers will tell, well, this needs to be this, needs to be this. So they have to fix it up, everything.
So they make it,
So-
edit it on spot like
Yeah.
that night.
Yeah, yeah.
Send it to
Yeah, it's a
Netflix, and then
lot.
they send back the next morning. They
Yeah.
send back, do this, do that, change this,
Oh.
film
Yes.
this, talk more about this.
Because they're trying to piece the story
Right.
together.
Right.
Interesting.
So
So,
it's chaotically made.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
it
Like-
is. And then towards the end of filming, these film crew people are kind of like started to sweat because Netflix, the main guy,
Mm-hmm.
actually picked us because me being Japanese
Yeah.
and playing this type of
Right.
music
It was just interesting
was
story.
so interesting to him. So he was telling you guys need to film them playing more music
Yeah.
part.
Okay.
Because the people on the ground were like, well, the music stuff don't have anything to do with anything.
this.
Yeah.
But then Netflix is like, why are they not playing more music?
Right, because that's the stick. That's
Right.
how they got
Right.
you. Okay.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't know if you watched the Disney episode
yeah.
on that I'm playing the fiddle
In the
thing.
car.
Yes, that was because like, do you want me to play fiddle in the car or something?
Yeah, I remember
you know,
that one.
I just had
And
to
we were
say
filming,
that.
the main part of the filming was a dead heat of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
So it was hard to even have any shows for them to film.
right.
Uh,
Right. Okay.
At that
so you
moment.
had to kind of do
Right.
your own thing.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
we had to kind of create situations like on that one episode we jammed with those older gentlemen at that
Somehow
store
they
and
do the
stuff like
music
that.
involved.
So we tried. It was a little tough because at that moment it was right,
Right.
in the heat of COVID.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they were like, oh, well, we still need some music part of it. And then I just like, well, then I'll just want to start playing fiddle in the car.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was interesting. And then what was interesting from our point of view, and like I say, it's not even something we applied for.
Yeah.
They just found us.
Yeah.
Right.
And thought the story was interesting, and that's all TV or any content.
Yeah.
It's the stories.
Yes.
Right.
You
Well,
know.
that's why we're here. We're trying to spread our stories to a wider audience. Spread bluegrass music, which is hard to say. Spread bluegrass music
Yeah.
to a wider audience. So if you guys
Right.
like this content, make sure you share this content, like and subscribe. I'm going to round things off here, but for those listening at home, perhaps are getting into bluegrass, maybe they're long-term listeners. I want you guys to talk about albums or music, artists, whatever, that you recommend for the viewers to get into bluegrass and or to go deeper. Just what's your favorite music? Leona, what do you recommend?
I don't know. We're in my basement. This is.
Yeah,
That's
it's good to
getting in for
go down a
me.
rabbit hole here.
Hold on. Go ahead. Leanne.
All right. So, well, my pretty much like a textbook bluegrass music to me was the Bluegrass album band.
Yes.
So
I mean,
I don't know which one, volume 4, volume.
all mesh together
yes,
with
I
the
mean,
Rice
it's,
Brothers, all the-
yes,
yeah.
I know it's so many different variation of.
But you were a
their
Bobby
stuff.
Hicks.
But I
Major
love a
Bobby
Bobby
Hicks
Hicks. Yes. So I think that has a pretty much standard bluegrass jam session songs are recorded. So if you're getting interested in bluegrass and wanting to be able to play with somebody, I would recommend to study from them and just learn everything.
you can't go wrong. For me, like that, and I'm talking like the Tony Rice albums, the like all that just always comes back. Like,
Oh,
no
yes.
matter how far you get into the new grass, it's just like those are the classics. Like it's
Yes.
just JP, what'd you pull out here?
Okay, so we're talking. And I agree with the Bluegrass album band stuff. I learned every song on every one of their albums. That, to me, that's the educational foundation of bluegrass. Is those 6 albums.
Yeah.
If you can learn all those songs,
Yeah.
you can play any
Pretty much.
bluegrass.
Yeah.
So, but like I say, I'd mentioned earlier, the Osborne Brothers CD was my first one. So after I got the banjo out of my great grandmother's house, I went to the mall again. The mall, everything circulated around the mall, and there was I think FYE or one of those chain
remember
music
those.
stores.
Yeah. What was the other ones? I forget.
Sam
Goody.
Sam
was one of-
Goody,
yeah.
those kind of places. There was one of those in the mall. I think it was FYE.
They're coming back, by the way.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
So I made my grandma. I said, "Take me to the mall. I need to buy some bluegrass stuff." So I went there and I'm staring around. They had a fairly decent selection of bluegrass stuff, and I did know that Bill Monroe was the creator of bluegrass. So there was this box set: Bill Monroe, The Essentials, the Columbia Sessions. So this is basically, and it's all of his recordings from 45 to 49. That's during the time period that Flatt and Scruggs joined the band. So these are the first recordings of bluegrass music as we know it. The first few songs is still during like the string bean time.
Yeah.
And he had accordion players still trying to figure out the sound of the music. So I went and bought this box. It's a 2 CD box set, and it's got the first recordings from, I think it's October of 1946 when Flatt and Scruggs and Bill Monroe first recorded in a hotel room in Chicago. So it's got those recordings they made around one microphone.
Yeah.
Basically, like a situation like this, except we have 3 microphones. They only had one.
Yeah.
And so this was my first Bible
Yeah.
to bluegrass. It's even got the book. I even still have where you can send off the mailing information. But this was my and it's weird too. Every picture of Bill Monroe is him playing guitar.
Huh.
And
I've never
he's
noticed
not
that.
known as a guitar player,
Yeah,
as a
yeah.
mandolin player.
Now, you think there's a reason behind that? Like
I think probably to sell this box set, wanted it to
because the mandolin wasn't a well-known. Okay.
but it does have the cool picture of him with Flatt and Scruggs on the book that where they're in front of that Purina
Yeah.
feed store or whatever. So my first purchase of bluegrass music was the Garden of Eden of bluegrass music. It was these recordings.
Yeah.
So I fell in love with Bill Monroe and actually before he passed away, got to meet him a couple of times.
Yeah.
So I was glad to get to do that. And then later, Leona got to take fiddle lessons for many years from Tater Tate,
Yeah.
who was the longest running
Right.
bluegrass boy
Right.
ever.
Right.
So both fiddle and bass. But my connection to Bill Monroe was very strong and still is. I love Bill Monroe because if it's not for him putting together the music, bringing Flatt and Scruggs in to create the sound, once they recorded, that's the sound that we know today as bluegrass.
Yeah. Well, guys, I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to put all your links in the description below. You guys do bookings. You have a food truck, which we can hit on in another episode, perhaps.
Right.
And you just have a lot of things going on around this music. Your inspirations to me. Seriously. I'm not lying when I say that. When I go to see you guys play, it makes me want to play better. And when I see what you guys have done throughout the years and have stayed glued together, I'm going to ask you one last question. Husband and wife couple. Is everything usually good when you leave the stage? Like you guys, I mean, it appears so, but I mean, I think people might be interested. Are there challenges around like the performance elements of what you guys do?
There is a challenge sometimes, we face on the stage because, we live together and then we do everything. And
sometimes we perform, a lot of times we perform as a duo act.
Right.
It's a different situation. You have a band.
To have a band,
right.
but you guys.
But when you're a duo act, and we're two lead instruments.
Yeah.
and
you're competing over. I mean, you both like the spotlight.
Right.
And,
yes.
Yeah.
So I mean, but I think the bluegrass music, just like Bill Monroe, he's kind of like always competing with everybody else.
The next
somebody
person
plays
taking the
fast,
break.
then he goes in. So that's kind of a mentality we do have in both. But sometimes it's so difficult. But putting the smile on the stage and then pretending like nothing's going on. But so we do have sometimes of eye contact of like, I am going to smack you later.
But we know each other so well too. Like if something's going on, if something's going on with my instrument or like a string's way out of tune, we have these looks that we can just give to each other, and we instantly know. She knows she needs to step in and do something because I'm like giving her an eye, like hit me here, like something's going on. But that's the other thing that we do, and we've been doing a lot of Dollywood stuff recently.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And what you mentioned and what people tell us, and I've never done a thing like Dollywood where 4 times a day you have new people coming in.
Yeah.
So it's just new people every day.
Right.
And that's the thing that we get complimented on, and it actually makes me feel good. We've had many people tell us that's the clearest bluegrass music, and there's just 2 of you that I've ever heard. And that I appreciate that because, and I get comments all the time. You play full banjo playing while you sing. Yeah. And I'm like, but when you're in a duo, I can't stop.
Yeah, that's not easy to do. You've worked hard on that.
You have to create 2 different minds.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Singing and playing wide open rolling band. Clawhammer's not bad because you're strumming.
Yeah.
But to actually play rolls, licks in between, that's taken years of trying to practice. And one thing I do and I've always done when I practice to try to where I can pay attention to 2 different things at one time. Even when I was a kid, I would practice banjo, and I still do it with the TV on, a movie or something. Watching that, doing this.
I speak a lot in my earlier videos, the guitar instructions, and that's how I do it. You learn whatever your
you got to learn it first.
A couple phrases, do it slow, watch something else, and then your fingers do what they need to do.
Turn it into muscle memory.
Right.
Exactly.
But if with guitar, I can maybe take it. But with the banjo, with the TV and radio on, yes, as a wife, I don't know.
Well, guys, thank you for doing this. If you'd like to support JP and Leona, everything's in the description. If you'd like to support me, check the description party below. Grab yourself a t-shirt. 5% of what I do goes back to a charity that teaches Appalachian youth bluegrass music. We're kind of starting a whole perpetual motion here. You watch the channel, buy merch, and then we're going to play more. We're going to do more with the music. Anything else, guys, before we wrap it up?
I think just check us out, fiddlingleona.com. Anything else, Leona?
I think we covered everything.
All right.
All right, folks. Next time, we'll see you.
Take care.